Wheel bearings allow the wheels of your car to turn with little friction, but when the car stops, the bearings begin to cool down, which causes a vacuum to form inside. Seals are typically used to contain this vacuum. If these seals fail, the bearing may draw in outside air, which may contain water and other impurities. Noise and bearing damage may result from this. So when it comes to troubleshooting, knowing the typical causes of wheel bearing noise can help you spot issues early and save time. In this video, we're going to talk about the symptoms of a bad wheel bearing noise. And just before we start, please ensure you've subscribed to the channel. Normal wear and tear. Wheel bearings naturally deteriorate with time due to frequent use. The bearings will gradually deteriorate as your car's mileage increases due to the continuous motion and strain it experiences. Although this is a typical aspect of a vehicle's aging, you should take care of worn bearings as soon as possible to avoid further harm to the bearings and related parts. Unbalanced tires or worn suspension. Your wheel system is made up of numerous interdependent parts such as the tire, suspension, bearing, and more. Wheel bearings may be subjected to additional strain if your tires are out of balance or your shocks are worn out. The bearings may wear down more quickly and produce noise as a result of this increased strain. Driving on rough roads. Wheel bearings bear the entire weight of a car, so curbs, potholes, and uneven roads can particularly strain them. The tiny balls inside the bearing or the ring they sit in may sustain damage if you run into these obstructions. Tiny defects brought on by this damage increase heat and friction while driving. This can lead to the bearing failing and making noise over a period of weeks or months. Driving through deep water. The purpose of wheel bearing seals is to keep impurities out and lubricant in. However, these seals may eventually become compromised by prolonged or frequent exposure to deep water. If you frequently drive through deep puddles or flooded streets, water may eventually seep into the bearing. It may mix with the lubricant as a result, decreasing its effectiveness. Increased friction and possible bearing damage may result from this. Although they are not totally waterproof, modern wheel bearings are more effective than older models at preventing water intrusion. A contemporary sealed bearing cannot be easily cleaned and relubricated if water does seep in. A water-damaged bearing will typically require a complete replacement. Unless you have no other option, avoid driving through deep water to protect your wheel bearings and other parts that are vulnerable to water damage. Accident damage near the wheel area. The wheel bearings may have been harmed if your vehicle was in an accident and a wheel area was damaged. The impact may result in internal bearing problems even if the damage isn't immediately apparent. Noise and eventual bearing failure could result from this damage. Manufacturing defects. Wheel bearings can occasionally have factory flaws, though this is uncommon. Although these defects may not be immediately noticeable, they may result in the bearing wearing out more quickly than usual or making noise earlier than anticipated, and this might be the reason if your car is having bearing issues and it's relatively new. Improper installation. A poor installation could be the cause of the noises you're hearing if your wheel bearings were just replaced. Bearings can sustain damage rapidly if they are not installed correctly or in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. Although it is possible to replace your own wheel bearings, most of the time it is best to leave this task to the experts. In many cases, specialized tools are required, and improper installation can pose major safety risks. How to diagnose damaged or noisy wheel bearings. To determine whether a wheel bearing is damaged, lift the car with a floor jack until the tire is off the ground. Try shifting the tire from side to side and then up and down. The bearing may be harmed if the wheel wobbles or has some free play. Keep in mind that a bad wheel bearing can make a variety of noises. The degree of bearing damage often determines how loud or noticeable it is.